So this is episode 3, Code 6 Movie Time podcast. We are missing a member today. Isaiah,
who is
peace be with
procrastinating and God be with him.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
But in his place, we have our special guest, Michaela.
Who is so much cooler.
Hi,
welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, thank
yes,
you.
So pretty.
Michaela is my girl. She was my co-director for a documentary about women directors. The irony. Represent. So
There's such things.
yes,
They're out there somewhere.
So cool.
They're like
Yeah.
Bigfoot. You just have to kind of look for them.
Yeah.
women in charge of things. Gross.
I say.
The patriarchy is so much better.
Okay, so and we have Micah, wonderful Micah,
Who has been sarcastic about everything up to this point.
and then there's me, Bailey. So today we are talking about Blue Velvet. Finally, my pick for a movie.
I want to ask you, Bailey, why did you pick this movie after seeing it in October?
Very much.
I think because it stuck with me. Like, I always think about it. Like, I always think about who is Frank Booth? Why is he so fucked up?
Yeah.
And Dorothy is so sad. And then Jeffrey just gets to go about his life
Such a white
doing whatever he wants. Yeah. And he literally does whatever he wants, and then he just gets away with it, and he gets Laura Dern. And it's a fascinating movie, I think. I constantly think about it.
Who's the director of this movie again?
David Lynch.
Wasn't it typical of him to always leave questions and possibilities and everything he did without ever answering them?
The only other thing I've seen of his is Dune, which is not a good representation of his directorial skills.
Mulholland Drive is nuts, and Eraserhead is super disturbing, and so is Elephant Man. And they say that Blue Velvet is the most accessible David Lynch film. And
wow.
Blue Velvet is the most accessible. There are like 2 really, really hard to watch scenes of Blue Velvet. So
yeah, very much.
I would think that maybe Twin Peaks would be the most accessible David Lynch property, or his episode of Louis. So
yeah, I love this movie. But what did you think of it? You'd never seen it before,
No,
right?
I didn't know what I was expecting or getting myself into. Then again, this is a movie you picked, and I should have known better. There were parts of it I liked and parts of it I didn't, and it's not my style, not my kind of movie, obviously.
And that's totally okay.
It gave me just some, I don't know, just I can extract all the things that are valuable, like the lessons, if any way, any meaning making I can make from it. I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I also didn't enjoy it for what it wasn't.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's like its own little dimension of reality and, you know, acceptance of like what it is. You have to be in a certain state of mind to watch it.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of a mixed bag, like tonally. Like it's a melodrama, crime thriller, sort of supernatural,
erotic thriller.
Right, but I think it mixes well. I don't think it's just like a hodgepodge of all those different genres. And it's like got critiques about suburbia, kind of like in an American Beauty kind of way.
American Beauty totally ripped it.
Yeah, the beginning with the rose, I think it was paying homage because like this movie's too famous and like has achieved cult status or whatever. But also American Beauty really takes the rose motif and runs with it. So.
I hated American Beauty.
Really? Oh man.
I know, but but it's like I've seen it twice. And it's after I've seen all of the parodies of it.
Oh yeah, the plastic
the only part I loved was the very end with Annette Bening crying and like grabbing onto his suits. That was the only time I felt something from that movie.
Oh, ouch!
Because she's such a great actress. Yeah. So Blue Velvet. People don't know it's about Kyle MacLachlan, super cute, just fresh off of Dune, coming back from college, and he finds an ear in a field, and he plays detective. And it takes him down a rabbit hole of what the fuck. What did you think of his character?
I was very aggravated by him the whole movie. First of all, his square jaw just was very distracting.
Baby face.
Yes, his very like, come on, just do this with me, to like that virgin woman.
Laura Dern.
Yeah, her, who's also annoying.
Sally.
Robin. Oh, no, she had a dream of robins.
Mm-hmm. And then the fake robins.
Yes. Anyway, she was just gross in her own way. But, like, he's very much an annoying character, but was necessary for continuing the plot as a total fuck-up. Just, I don't know, just reminds me of so many of the people I've encountered in my world today.
Mm-hmm.
I think what bothers me about Jeffrey is he has no personality. at the beginning, he's just kind of like meandering around and letting things happen to him.
I think he has some personality when he does the little Groucho Marx thing, like when he makes her laugh. I thought that was like charming and stuff. He's definitely, I'd say he has personality, but he's also just does whatever the fuck he wants, and that's an issue.
Yeah, well, it makes me uncomfortable, and I know it's supposed to when he's in the closet and he doesn't leave when he's watching all this go down. But it's like, oh, but we're the audience, and we're watching him watching, and we're not leaving, so it's a little vindicating.
Do you mean the first part?
The time where he sees her get raped.
But she told him if he got out, that Frank would kill him.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
and the beginning when he watches her, like, get undressed.
Yeah, I didn't like that. But I didn't like that, but I don't get why he had to be, like, in there. But, I mean, he did look away. Like, he was like, oh, she's getting naked. But she didn't get fully naked yet. But the first time when we watched it together, Michaela, for Spooktober, when it was a reversal and she grabs the knife and then she turns around on him and makes him get naked, I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. Like, just kind of that reversal. Bless you. And then how damaged she is because of Frank, and she literally mimics him. Like, he's so under her skin that she literally says the same things he does. Like, she's abusive to Jeffrey and says, don't look at me. Like,
oh yeah, that was interesting.
I love that on like a cinematic and thematic level. Like, it makes me really think, like, what the fuck is up with this guy, this Dennis Hopper?
Yeah.
But
Heineken.
Heineken, I know.
Blue ribbon. Reminds me of the South.
Reminds me of my older brother who I was talking about in the car. My brother, who simultaneously looks like Viggo Mortensen, Jude Law, and Owen Wilson, reminds me of Frank Booth, and that's probably not a good thing.
Wow.
But also, just with that PBR line and all the cussing and just kind of being like the leader of his little gang. I'm pretty sure he doesn't do all that other shit. But yeah, I forgot that line. He had a lot of great lines.
Yes, or just moments where like he's just like, I'm death staring you, and then pulls out his little gas mask, like, and I'm like, oh my god, this is actually really funny. Like, in spite of the intensity, it was just
so. Originally in the script, that was supposed to be helium.
Oh.
That he sucks on. And
like it's a high voice?
Yeah, and he's supposed to have a high voice. And I read part of the script, and because it's online, and it's like he has a canister of helium and he sucks on it or whatever. And then it gives he commands her in a very high voice. It is very chilling. And it's like, oh yeah, this is great reading it. But then apparently Dennis Hopper was like, why the fuck would he be doing that? Here, he needs to do this ether thing because it actually enhances pleasure. Because it's Dennis Hopper and he knows everything about drugs. But I imagine if it was helium in the movie.
Well, it would psychologically make sense with this weird baby mama complex going on.
Yeah, I think that's what David Lynch was going with. Yeah. But like,
it would have taken away from...
Baby wants to fuck.
Oh my god, that was so hard. That was so hard to watch.
I couldn't help but laugh. It's too fucked up for me to take seriously.
Well, our brains probably aren't making that a reality right now.
Yeah,
No, exactly.
So you have a degree in psychology. What do you think of Frank Booth?
It's for only having watched it in the last 14, 18 hours and having to process all the psychologically disturbing things, I didn't really get around to actually being able to understand that. I would say obvious notes of like extreme trauma from his past that evolved into some sort of antisocial disorder, which you exhibit violence. You're not emotionally empathic. You're outbreaking and socially disturbed. Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like to me, and some serious, just as his sexuality manifested throughout his adolescence, having ASD as one possible diagnosis would very much explain how his mind has made meaning of his passive traumatic experiences. And so that's just the first thing that comes up for me is just he's had a really, really sick childhood in some weird way. His mom is this weird figure that is controlling him psychologically, sexually, emotionally, and then it's it's just showing up in all these ways throughout the movie. And we don't know. That's the thing, we can always speculate. I don't think anybody knows, but that would probably be my number one guess, is that some sort of abuse involving his mom.
Yeah. And then was she a lounge singer that sang Blue Velvet? Like, it's so crazy how he focuses on that. And then when Jeffrey sees him in the club and watches him cry, like real tears watching her sing.
Holding a piece of Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
So before, that sounds like a lot of like the things or qualities of whenever we think fondly of someone, memories and associations are always connected with, sense, sounds, visions. And Blue Velvet obviously had a positive sensation, which may have been one of the few that emotionally brought up tears or sadness in a way. And so there may have been like a pre-post period with his mom where like good years, very bad years, or maybe things about that manifested positively.
It made me so sad for Dorothy, because it was very clear when she was with Jeffrey that she was at the point where she needed to feel pain for pleasure, and she like wants him to hit her.
Yeah. And he refuses for a while until he like knocks her out, and that was...
I think that was definitely like that was totally an outburst. I don't think he like actually wanted to, like he just reacted to her. And I hated that shot of her chipped tooth, because it didn't make sense to me. Like, he hit her like this way, but it's like the chipped tooth is like that.
Logistically.
It didn't make sense to me. But also, like, I hate that part. I hate that still, but I also love it because, like, she has that smile, and it's very sadistic. And it's interesting. It's great cinematography. And, like, it's also, like, who was she before Frank came along? Like, we see a tiny glimpse of it at the very end, but she's still sad when she hugs her son.
When the song plays. Yeah.
Well, that also makes sense. At least the first part where, pain becomes pleasure, it sounds like very much a defense mechanism towards that. It's almost like in depression, where you have to feel something in some way. Self-harm is one way to be able to access that part of yourself to where physically addresses those emotional components. In terms of the sadness at the very end, I mean, when you've been psychologically put through hell, it's this, what is it, Stockholm Syndrome is what you said? Where you're like...
Well, I didn't say it, but I alluded to it. I was thinking of last week's episode to Pokemon. You brought up Stockholm Syndrome with Pokemon, and fucking Pokemon.
Yeah, no, like it's just like it's a loss in a weird way, and in this messed up way, and how do you cope with that? How do you cope with always being on eggshells the whole time and having to figure out your life? Like, oh my god, identity crisis. Like,
that's a crazy concept, that abuse can be a loss.
Yes,
that's fucking nuts. Can I swear?
No, yeah.
What do you make of the Robins?
I could have done without that. I feel like the Robins is like kind of like the lampshade test. Like, if a woman can be replaced with a lampshade, the movie fails. That
Laura Dern can be replaced with a lampshade.
Yes.
Re-edit Blue Velvet with just a lampshade.
Not Laura Dern, but like her whole Robins. Like, I guess it was supposed to take it to another level of like optimism. Mm-hmm. But then actually showing the fucking Robins, and it's a
the
fake
animatronic Robin.
Apparently, it wasn't animatronic.
Really?
But that's what David
Robin?
Lynch says. So who fucking knows?
Left up to interpretation.
But like
where do you find that stiff Robin?
Yeah, that
Robbie?
that Pinocchio Robin. Yeah, I hated like her acting that out and like crying and whatever. You can get the cookie.
And I like how that scene ends though, is Jeffrey is like, "You're a neat girl."
Yeah.
And
oh my god. Really, of all things.
But like I really liked her character because she's
like purity.
She's purity, but she's also curious.
And
like there's clearly not a lot going on in this town. Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey is from there and leaves and comes back. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, I think him leaving and coming back, he sees it kind of differently. Like, how any of us do coming back home from college.
Right.
And she's still in high school. So I think she just sees through him just something different, and it makes her really rethink things, like, you know, that her boyfriend's dumb and she loves him. But no, I would never want to replace Laura Dern in a movie with a lampshade. Bottom drawer. It's either the bottom drawer or the second drawer. I'm directing Micah where to get the oven mitts because he's making cookies. FYI.
Just so the audience knows.
But no, I would never ever want to cast out Laura Dern, especially because that ugly cry face when they bring Dorothy naked into her house. Mm-hmm. That was great. I would love a reaction gif made from that.
I'm sure it's out there.
Just like, oh no, I have to go to work today.
When you get your grades back after a midterm, you did well.
I really liked the town, just how stupid idyllic it was, like at the hardware store. It's particularly the shot with the blind guy and the guy buying the axe who just holds the axe in front of his face and like lists it off and like, oh, okay, sounds good. And it's just like nothing could go wrong in this little logging community.
That was the whole point, to set a contrasting tone, to like really underlying or highlighting the reality of how the world is and how dark it can be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And which is like so Twin Peaks too.
Mm-hmm.
And Mystic River, which I hated.
What was it?
Mystic River. Have you ever watched Mystic River?
Mm-mm.
Another one of those dismal, I need to cleanse and take a shower after I watch it. With
Sean Penn?
Yes.
I've never seen it.
It's very dark. You know, after you watch too much CSI Miami or the Special Victims Unit, you just feel the need to pray, you know, and just feel better.
Sean Penn, him and his ugly face.
Anyway, one of the same kind of concept.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, the world's gross, you know. Like,
but I didn't think this was as dark as, say, like a Requiem for a Dream or like something like that. Just because we did get to go back to the town, and there was like a lot of unique color theory going on. I mean, Blue Velvet, but and also like that ending that kind of comes out of nowhere when it zooms out of the ear, and he's just like, oh, it's lunch and the robins, and like we've just gone on this crazy, really dark journey, and now we're back to this like.
No one makes meaning that way.
Yeah, I watched there was a featurette documentary on the DVD, and I watched it, and David Lynch was like, when you go into the ear, you go into a different world. And when you come out of Jeffrey's ear, you come back into reality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's also like, was it really reality? Or is going into the ear the real reality?
That's what I was thinking. Because when we come out at the end, things are just too perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this, like the fucking fake Robin and stuff. That was like, I feel like we're in like a heightened version of like a utopian reality. Yeah.
You're in a simulation of a simulation.
Oh my god, no.
Blue Velvet VR.
That is a very good point, though. It's like, which is the actual reality, and more entering the reality versus leaving. I want to see the crisis. I want to see the mental institution and the counselor. You need to process this crap. This is not normal.
Yeah, you can just have lunch.
No.
However, like at the beginning, before we go into the sliced off ear, there is that surreal thing of like the guy on the fire truck, and then the old man having a heart attack in the middle of his yard. Like that was surreal. So maybe it's all real. It's all in a movie. But like I don't know, I think about this movie so much.
Well, it's shown visually right at the beginning of like, here's this idyllic town, and then we move down to like the bugs and like the gross underbelly. Like that's the thesis of the movie, right? So I that's what I read from the beginning scene. Like one scene, right?
Yeah. So
when they're in the apartment and he sings into like the light. Yeah, I knew you would like him. I was like, this is totally a Micah scene. Micah may hate this, but he'll like this.
Well, what I love is just how much of like a buffer he was to this aggressive, masochistic or sadist. Is he a sadist or masochist?
Sadist is like he likes seeing pain inflicted on others. Masochistic is like pain on himself. So both,
I suppose. Well, this is very...
I could be totally wrong.
Volatile, like I don't know, very psychologically disturbed man who's aggressive that doesn't take directions from other people. And then here's Ben just like, oh, have
He's
a seat,
calm and
welcome,
collected,
yeah.
put together.
Yes, and just not affected at all by this growth. So I'm curious psychologically, for one, like how did that relationship manifest?
Maybe they're brothers.
Maybe they're lovers.
Yeah.
Brother lovers.
Okay, no gay man drinks PBR over Heineken.
You're right.
Fucking pap blue ribbon.
Yeah. I almost died when my fraternity brother tried to make me PBR. You should drink it, Mike. I'm like, no, we are not doing that road. Anyway, but like it's just there's so much possibility.
So much to think about.
Well, I was reflecting on our conversation from our first podcast from like.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
Episode 1.
Yes, it is good. It's the first. You should look into it if you haven't. But like when that possible love manifestation happened between who was it?
White and Orange.
White and Orange. Yeah, I was just very much thinking about that. Like, oh, this is an underlying possibility that, of course, the director is leaving as just weird and possible, or they could just
unexplored.
Unexplored. Thank you. I'm struggling with that word. What do y'all think about that?
I mean.
I've never thought about it.
It didn't come across to me during my first or second viewings, and I wish it had, because like that makes a lot of sense. Like, because he seems to be the only guy that can like break through, like can communicate with him in any way. So that's not nothing.
Mm-hmm. I think I just chalked it up to this may be someone that Frank respects, and I didn't really think of like a relationship.
Yeah,
that.
There's a history there, though.
Yeah, definitely. And it's probably familial. Because, like, when someone's as fucked up as Frank, a lot of the times, people who, like, we're going with that he was abused by his mother, sometimes you can only listen to people who've also possibly been through that similar abuse. Like a sibling. True. Like, uniting against the parents. I might be putting too much of my own shit into this, but... I don't know. I never really thought about it till now, but I'm gonna say it's probably familial, or just
one-sided interest,
or just his name's Ben. Ben just has that way of like going under Frank's radar.
Like, what's Ben seen? Like, how does Ben know how to like not push Frank's button?
Actually, if you notice, what I noticed when I first watched it, the only time I watched it, Ben didn't make any eye contact with him at all. Like, closed eyes, just like waited, like this whole number, and then stepped in when there's a heightened like, oh, but the beer's coming, darling, could you get the beer? And just like was just very keen on knowing those buttons and triggers, and I was just like, this is brilliant. Like he knows. I don't know.
He knows Frank.
Yeah.
But that was so. What about that scene that like took my attention was that there's a little kid in the other room and this man who's being mutilated, and these groupies aren't doing anything about it, and that upset me. Like, as a woman, I'm always like, oh, girls should unite, but it's obviously like, they could be pieces of shit and not care.
Yeah.
But that was upsetting to me, that like, especially because they looked very domestic and like homely, and like they looked like they could be moms, and there's just this little boy kidnapped in the other room, and they know that he's there because Dorothy goes in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, passivity can be an act of violence, so
yeah,
I think that's what they were doing.
Like that was what more I was thinking about in that scene, not necessarily about like Ben. Besides, oh my God, Micah's gonna love this.
There's a lot going on in that one little like takeaway scene where they go in there, and then it's just kind of left.
Well, the scene's like it's called "Let's Go for a Joyride." I think it's very intentional that there is a lot crammed into that scene too.
That whole transition from that scene into the next scene is like my favorite thing ever, where he laughs and then he disappears like a magic trick, and then you hear the car, and then it goes into the car. That's like, fuck. That's such good filmmaking. Like,
how so?
Because it's surreal, and it's like an interesting transition, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? But it's like, there are so many different ways that you could transition from one scene to the other. True. That's just a very different way.
Yeah, and your brain's just like snapping to keep up. I like that about it.
But does it just all pile in at the very end after you figure out what happens? Is that what makes it good?
I think it's just like in terms of like cinematography and editing, that's why it stands out to me, because I do that. And I think it's just to make Frank seem almost like mystical. And it's also just a really good way to set up the next scene. Like, holy shit, this is gonna get even crazier. Yeah, and then they're just beating the shit out of Jeffrey. I'm surprised they didn't kill him, but
Same.
I kept thinking like, oh, they're gonna fucking kill him, and I'm surprised that they didn't. But they did beat the shit out of him pretty good.
Well, judging by, like, I was confused later when he was hiding, when Jeffrey was hiding, and, like, you know, Frank just shoots the guy and kills him, and I'm like, why didn't that happen earlier? Especially after getting punched in the face, and
yeah,
I don't know, it was very confusing to me.
I think it was just, Frank is probably just theatrical, but I think that whole thing is you're meant to be like, what the fuck? Because it's a lobotomized guy standing there. He's not dead, but he still has a gun. How did Jeffrey know he had the gun? He just assumed, like, he took a big risk going out of that closet to just, oh, good, he has a gun in his jacket.
It all works out for you, Jeffrey.
And then just, I think it's supposed to, like, show how demented Frank is. That he would lobotomize his own guy just to stand there and knock over a lamp. And then just stand there and have a gun. And then the Dorothy's husband to just be there pretty much so we can fully see whose ear that was. It's mentioned earlier when he says, we'll take another off Van Gogh or whatever. Like, there's a passive reference to Van Gogh because his ear is not cut off. But it was like, by the time we actually see, oh, that's the husband. Oh, fuck, we're too deep into this. Who cares about the ear?
True.
But, yeah, I really liked that scene. I liked how it was set up, and then just, yeah, stupid fuck! Don't you know I have a radio? And then he just goes berserk and just shoots the guy, and which I thought was interesting. Like, why would he just shoot him there?
Because it's Frank. That was the whole point of setting up that scene, right? Just having two people in the room, all mutilated, and
yeah, it was weird. It was so weird. It was, but it makes me think, which is why I like it.
Provocative.
It was really hyper realistic. Just the placement of people in the whole movie seems very much like theater in that way, because they're very, like, I don't know, set up in this dramatic way.
Almost like we were in, like, some horror video game or something, you know, where things are conveniently there for scare tactics.
I think that stems from the fact that David Lynch is a painter, and not he's a painter first and then a director.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, then there we go.
It was so great when Jeffrey shot him. I thought that was great. And then Laura Dern comes in, and then her cop detective dad comes in, like, oh, did she just, like, break through the lines to get in there? Like, that was pretty cool. Like, she didn't know what she was going into, but she wanted to, like, save Jeffrey. I like that.
Yeah, I
would never want to kick her out of a movie.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call her, like, a damsel in distress either. I think she has a lot of agency in this.
And
yeah, I'm happy about that too.
Yeah, and she's just so wonderful. She's on Big Little Lies. That's on HBO right now, that I'm obsessed with, and she's so good. But she's not a big character quite yet. But yeah, there's so much about this fucking movie. Is this supposed to be set in the 80s ish?
It came out in the 80s, so I assume it looks like present day 80s.
The hair was definitely 80s.
Because her son's stupid little hat is, like, from the 40s, and it's ugly, and I hate it. I hated his stupid little hat with the spinny thing.
Oh, jeez. Doesn't it make, like... Doesn't it just make one appearance?
No, it makes, like... It's in the picture that she pulls out from under the couch to look at. And then it's also, like... She has it like that. I think there's a part where she, like, holds on to it, and then he wears it at the end.
See, we always know from this movie so far that everything's intentional. So it's obviously to capture an image, an innocence. Yes, and maybe at the time, golly gee, Whittaker, little 10-year-old,
and how?
And oh, geez, Mister, thanks. It has this, you know, that.
I think it's supposed to make it seem timeless. Like you said, Andy Griffith. I can't whistle.
you know.
What else is there to talk about? There's so much to talk about, but I feel like we're skipping things. Well, we're going all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think of his? What did he call it? Jeffrey called Frank's disguise. Like,
oh, the cleanup guy?
Yeah,
or
good dressed
man.
A well-dressed man.
The well-dressed man.
He's disguised himself as a well-dressed man. Like, such an interesting, like,
it seemed
choice of words.
I know, it seemed like a homage to, like, those detective novels, or, like, I'm forgetting the name of the guy who writes.
Drew,
like,
the Hardy Boys.
yeah, like that kind of thing, and also like The Postman Always Rings Twice, like those kind of noir.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely like its own type of like color noir.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to also highlight the theme of like it's actually darker in reality. Or,
look at you!
I say from the kitchen
as he bakes cookies. Yeah, I wonder if like the cinematography and all the colors are so good in this movie, but I feel like because it was made in the 80s, it kind of like in that like kind of light ugly pink that you see a lot. I feel like
that Laura Dern wears.
Yeah, and like of like the furniture and whatever. I feel like the movie could do with like kind of like maybe being redigitalized. I don't know.
It's on Criterion Collection.
Yeah. But I don't think there could or should ever be a remake of this.
No.
It's too good. Cookies. Thank you, Micah.
And thank you, Sean.
And thank you, Sean.
Don't touch my mustache.
Doitashimashite is Japanese for you're welcome. But usually people are like, don't touch my mustache.
Arigato.
Let's watch Toy Story 2.
That's Sean, my husband, in the background.
Oh yeah, he goes to Japan in Toy Story 2. Or he wants to go to Japan.
No, there's a Totoro toy.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
In the
No,
third
that's
movie.
Toy Story 3.
Oh.
Toy Story 2 is the fat guy who wants,
wants to go to
to
Japan.
who
That's
wants
right.
to sell Woody to a Japanese museum.
Yeah.
And so he's talking with the museum
Don't
curator.
listen to me.
Yeah, and he's talking to the museum curator over the phone at the end when the Japanese guy thanks him, he yells over the phone, "Don't touch my mustache."
I thought you were talking about referring to Totoro.
No.
Toy Story 3. It's my bad.
Featuring Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Raymond Chandler. That's the detective that I was thinking of. Sorry, I just wanted that on the record because I couldn't remember.
Oh, let's talk about the detective.
The dad detective?
Yes. Just so like that's an ear. Yeah. That's an ear.
Yes,
just
it is an ear.
Just like okay.
Like a part of me is like Jeffrey's such a little shit for going all detective, but it's also like the detective's
he
not
wouldn't have
doing anything.
Yeah.
And I thought it was super cute, like very Hardy Boys, how he hung out in his car and took pictures and brought them to the detective.
Yeah. And this movie's exactly like Hardy Boys is what we're getting.
Which is really interesting. I wonder if there's a novelization of this.
It has to be.
Really?
I'd be fascinated to read like this. Not necessarily a script, but like an actual novelization.
How do you think it'd be different or the same?
I think, well, it can go more in depth into, Jeffrey, into Frank, into Dorothy. Why was she wearing a wig?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, she takes it off, but then did she put it back on after she came out?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to characterize the mom.
Maybe.
I mean,
but then she wore it at the very end, or yeah.
Well, maybe she needed it for her singing, like for her stage persona, and maybe it was just like an insecurity thing, or I don't know why. Like I don't know what her natural hair did or didn't look like. Maybe it had been like ripped out or mutilated in some way.
That actress is the daughter of Ingrid Bergman.
Oh,
who is a prostitute in New York City.
She what?
No, I'm kidding. I'm just adding commentary.
She was the actress in Casablanca.
Oh, which is a movie about prostitutes in New York City.
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, Micah. But yeah, and you can totally tell, like, she looks like her mom. But I guess after this, her and David Lynch started dating. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I'd want to date the director who did direction of me getting like a claw put up in my pussy during the rape scene.
No.
Was that what was happening? Because he didn't actually like penetrate her with his dick.
No.
That scene.
That was disgusting.
Yeah.
That's what was really hard for me to watch. I actually didn't watch most of it.
That's okay. I I thought, I should have warned you. That's my bad.
It's fine.
I'm
My
sorry,
PTSD did all the talking for me.
I'm sorry I didn't give you a trigger warning. Because I gave a big trigger warning during Spooktober. Like,
oh, nice.
Because that's what I always heard. I always heard that, like, this movie is, like, the craziest thing you'll ever see. Which...
What was weird is I started dissociating psychologically when that started happening, to the point where, like, when he started saying, like, mommy after gassing up, like, I blanked out, and I started not knowing what was going on, and I felt very disturbed by what was happening. Like, my mind didn't make sense, like we were talking about earlier, because it's so out there.
It's so nuts.
It's so nuts.
And yeah, when I watched it the first time with you at Spooktober, I was like, I'm not gonna look away. I'm not gonna hide, because like I wanted to like not appear like it was making me uncomfortable, but it made me so uncomfortable. But the second time I watched it, I could definitely like I guess I was desensitized to it to a point that I could really look at what he was doing, and it was so fucked up.
So, but this movie was a success, right?
Critically, it was divisive. Like, some critics were like, "This is art," but Roger Ebert gave it like 1 star.
Yeah,
and he was like, "This is fucked up."
But their thing was also on the DVD commentary, and his whole thing was he felt bad for the actress.
Yeah,
and he's like, "I can't believe that she was forced to do this," and Siskel was like, "She read the script.
Yeah,
she. I mean, I don't understand why you're like." Hating this entire movie because of how how a character is portrayed.
The patriarchy.
Which, like, and also like David Lynch, Dennis Hopper, and her, Isabella Rossellini, they all like laughed during the whole scene. Like, David Lynch was laughing during the scene because it was so bizarre. And then the two, Dennis Hopper and her, were like laughing, and she's like in an interview, she's like, to this day I still break out in laughter because it's such a stupid, bizarre scene.
I guess if you're not psychologically
it's so
in the place,
over the top,
right? It is bizarre. It is just like, what are we doing? Like,
and
that makes sense.
And but I feel like it's very authentic because Frank is so fucked up. I feel like it's not just edgelord, you know, it's not
David Lynch isn't subjecting us to this just because he wants to like throw us disturbing images. Like, it seems deliberate, and it's also not spread out through the whole film. It's like kind of centralized in these 2-3 like disturbing scenes.
I would actually place him up there with Anthony Hopkins in terms of psychological delivery, for sure. I'm surprised he didn't win the Academy Award for that movie. But I was also thinking, like, so historically, like, I asked that why it's a success because the 80s was all about uprising of different genres, different movements, right? You know, the AIDS movement came up, like lots of different provocative things going on. The Breakfast Club came out in 88, 89, I think, I don't know. And it was all about, you know, just cliques, and it raised different things. So I was wondering if it was a success or not. Socially, on the one hand, but also...
It was very hard to get it produced. Basically, the guy who produced it had to make his own production company to get the film made. Like, nobody wanted to touch it. But except for the actors. Like, the actors loved it.
What did David Lynch have under his belt at this point?
He did Eraserhead. And he did Dune.
Okay. Like, Dune, so that's what he's got going for him.
He made Dune right before this. Because that was how he first got...
And
Eraserhead's
the toughest sell, I think. I mean, I don't know. It like gained cult status and stuff, but it is not for mass audiences.
I haven't seen it. I really want to see it because I really want to watch more of his films. I've literally only seen this and Dune. Oh my god, fucking Dune, and R.I.P. and like 2 episodes of Twin Peaks. So I really want to know more about him because he's a fantastic director, and especially since he is primarily a painter and that's his background. Yeah. Because that's kind of my background. And I'm like, so it received mostly positive reviews in the US. Not unanimous, but the critics who did praise the film were particularly vociferous. I don't know what
Which is a word that means
I don't know
prostitute.
What that means. Yes, prostitute. Yeah, Dennis Hopper was nominated for a Golden Globe, and I think he won for this.
Thank God.
Frequently appears in various critical assessments of all-time great films, which is interesting.
Oh, Wikipedia coming from the clutch here.
It's been on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills. Frank Booth is ranked at 36 for the 50 greatest 50 greatest villains in 100 years. 100 heroes, 100 villains. And top 10... The AFI revealed its 10 top 10, the best 10 films in 10 classic American film genres after polling over 1,500 people from the creative community. Blue Velvet was acknowledged as the 8th best film in the mystery genre.
Oh, wow. That is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Mystery, though?
Yeah, it's a mystery. Because you're trying to figure out where this ear comes from. Especially, like, there's a fucking ear in the middle of a field in this, like, perfect little town.
Yeah, I think it's sold as a mystery, but, like, it's not as straight.
It's like, I've always been told it's like an erotic thriller.
Yeah, but not in the same way like Cruel Intentions or like Basic Instinct is an erotic thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like a, I don't know, I don't feel like there's anything sexual about it. I mean, not in a titillating way.
No.
I
would put this more in like criminology field rather than like mystery. I guess mystery in the sense of like I would imagine mystery in this case to be like, who are these characters? Like, what makes them what they are? But that doesn't really count as mystery in the genre, in my opinion. But I mean, they voted. This is what it is, and maybe at the time this is.
And as a framing device, like Jeff and Sandy, is that her name?
I think it's Sandy.
Yeah. Well, like they periodically meeting through the film to discuss like where they are at in this case, quote unquote. Of like, oh, I've just found out this, and we're gonna go stake out the house. Like that's sort of a mystery element. But everything that happens in between is just so jagged of what you would expect in like a typical crime procedural or whatever.
So David Lynch was nominated for Best Director, but that was the only nomination, like Oscar nomination this had, and then nominated for Best Screenplay and Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role, which was Dennis Hopper. He did not win though. But yeah, I guess Dennis Hopper, he had just come out of rehab for drugs, very heavy drug use, and he like really wanted to play Frank. And I guess his exact words were, "I am Frank. I have to do this."
Oh Dennis.
Yes.
He's a great. I was so sad when he died.
Not someone that you would have casual coffee with. Fun quote unquote fact. This Dennis Hopper and Isabella Rossellini's first film that they filmed was the rape scene.
It's just got that out of the way.
Boom, right out the gate.
I think that's an interesting strategy on David Lynch's part.
Well, that makes sense because when you're getting to know people, it's a little bit, it's an icebreaker.
For sure. But then, but then as you act in more scenes down the line, you're like, whoa, we've already done this.
The worst. True.
Yeah. So we can just break down that barrier.
Also, Dennis Hopper, when she opens up like the robe, he did not know that she was going to be naked underneath.
Oh.
She was supposed to be wearing underwear, but she was like, "Oh, but you can see the underwear like in certain angles." So David and I decided I would just be nude. Like very European of her.
Yeah.
And very forcing her to do this. Okay.
But like I guess that shows what a good actor Dennis Hopper is, cuz he like his reaction acting to it was like pretty professional.
He probably used that motivation to his advantage, like of really getting back into the character. She took it from 0 to 100, and then he took it from 100 to 1,000, over 9,000.
I thought it was really interesting how Dorothy kept calling Jeffrey Don.
Did she?
She kept calling him her husband's name.
Oh.
And like, and then later she called him her secret love when she was naked and brutalized.
Right.
My secret love. And that's when Laura Dern does her ugly cry.
You bastard.
Yeah. Like, so many
small things.
I want to write like a million papers just about Dorothy in this. And it's like, I was like, my first reaction when she gets her son back at the end of the movie, I was like, no, don't get the son back. You're fucked up. Which is like, a very first reaction. Like, obviously that's not right, like it's her son, she should be with her son, but it's also like maybe she's so damaged.
Yeah, maybe parent-child therapy or something.
And that also like makes me worried, like after the events of the movie, like would she get help? Would she go to a therapist? Is that like the oppressive thing about this perfect little town? Mm-hmm. Is there space for them to find help like that? Or does everything go back to normal?
I doubt there's a counseling center in Lumberton.
Well, you raise a good point, both of you, and like the concern, because as Rayleigh mentioned earlier, like it was interesting to see her project the behavior that Frank projected on her, on Jeff, and so how that might play out later with her own child.
Yeah, like, and that's why I think it was so when she looked sad as she was holding him, like I feel like she was thinking about that, like
the song plays like Blue Velvet in my dreams, like I feel like
I think she was kind of like there's a cycle through me, will this lead in with my son?
Mm-hmm. Or I see my son as Frank in a weird way now, or
hopefully not. Oh my god. Fucking Frank. No.
Well, I mean, I think the movie makes a case for that because it ends the way it starts a little bit, like in the garden with the white fence. So it kind of makes the case that this is a repeating cycle, which is...
Yeah, I think like the overall theme of it could be just abuse is like an Ouroboros. It consumes everyone. It's around.
Generational.
It's generational, and it's an infection. Like Jeffrey abuses her when he doesn't want to, and she like drives him to do it. Like hit me, get out of my bed. And then he hits her, and then he's horrified, and he cries deeply when he later when he realizes what he did, but it's like, is he gonna be like that at all with Laura Dern? Is it Sandy?
Yeah.
The fuck is her name?
I think it's Sandy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll double check.
Sandy.
No. Oh, Danny Zuko. That's what I think when I think of Sandy, or pecan sandies, like the cookie. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with it?
Do you guys prefer Jeffrey with Sandy or Dorothy?
Ooh, like fuck, marry, kill.
Not in that way. I was thinking more of like shippers.
But let's play fuck, marry, kill. So we have Dorothy, Sandy, and Ben.
Frank.
Or Ben.
With
Frank. Let's do Frank.
Like with us, or who's Jeffrey? Marry, kill. That'd be so interesting if it would have gone with like Frank trying to fuck Jeffrey. Like,
oh, that kiss scene that was so demented. That was weird. Psychologically, what do you think just happened there?
What part is it?
Like when at the very end of the joyride, right after he punched him, the goons take him out, and just was not very authentic acting. And then he comes out. I didn't know what to expect. He has like, oh yeah, pretty or something like that, and just like, murdered him with his mouth.
I barely remember that.
It's so disorienting.
It's weird
and like disjointed.
Because the visuals very much contradict the intent, like the intent and then the emotions and what's really going on. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I think that's why like I brought that up, because like I remember that the first time watching it. I think I might have like left the room when I watched it the second time during that. But yeah, like it's like if Jeffrey had stayed in this world, would it have eventually been he would be like almost like a second Dorothy to Frank?
Again, underlying possible bisexual themes with Frank. He seems to like to go for those like low-key innocence.
Yeah. But was Dorothy innocent before?
One might speculate.
Maybe.
Based off of the people in Frank's life now.
She didn't give off the same veneer of innocence that Sandy does, for sure. I mean,
used and abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a weird intent. Like, of all things to do, why gas it up and just about go psycho in someone's mouth? Like, that just is weird. It was a weird but brilliant move, I think, on David's part.
Okay, so who Dorothy or Sandy? Who should Jeff been with?
Well,
It's like, it's weird because there's this authentic love. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's okay.
Authentic love or like infatuation with Sandy, but like it's almost like Jeff explores a new dark side of himself. Like Dorothy.
There's sexual passion with
Or lust.
Yeah, there's like lust with her, but he also like does care about her.
Yeah. I don't know. That also gave me like kind of gross vibes though when he was with Sandy and after the Robin conversation, and they clearly were attracted to each other, and then he goes and like sleeps with Dorothy. I was like, oh, come on. Yeah.
They weren't FBO.
Right. And Sandy had a boyfriend, and everyone's fucking everyone, and it was fine. But I was still like, pick a lane.
Yeah, like Sandy's not that innocent. She had a boyfriend,
right?
But she clearly has a thing for Jeffrey.
Ooh, good point. Let's talk about that. Like, not everybody's
casual cheating.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Casual cheating's not bad.
But was she cheating? Because she was just hanging out with him, but she clearly liked him, so it was like emotional cheating. But it didn't really seem like she liked her boyfriend at all. It seemed like she was.
That seems like a high school status thing. He was a
like
football player.
Yeah, she was expected to like him.
But what comes to mind is the scene in the car right after or before they started talking about the Robins was like, Jeffrey's like, oh, I'm gonna come over tomorrow, and she's like, oh, you can't. Blah blah blah's coming over. Yeah, Mike's coming over, and she seems sad, and then he's like, well, I'll call you. He's like, oh yeah, call me. So that's kind of what it was cheating in that sense. I feel of like, this isn't something I want Mike to see.
It's just like something she's not communicating with her boyfriend, someone she is committed to. And I can't speak for Mike because in every scene that he's in or talked about, he seems like a giant douche. So like, we're not supposed to like Mike.
Except for when he's like, has his hand gripped on the fence like DW, like Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy.
Also, why were the football players warming up in the tennis courts? That doesn't happen.
Shout out to David.
Does that happen?
Hyper realistic. Suspension
completely took me out of the movie. Like,
that took you out of the movie.
That took me out of the movie. I couldn't deal with that because it
legitimacy is out.
Although pause, sidebar, thanks Lozano for teaching me that. From now on we should have like a took me out of the movie portion of the podcast.
I think I've said that every time.
That's why like you
what took you out of the Pokemon movie?
Oh, listen to that. Listen to that episode.
Although half of it got cut out, but she probably said took me out of the movie like 10 times in that whole thing.
Yeah.
Isn't the whole thing like...
That's what the podcast should have been called, actually. Took me out of the movie.
And I'm only saying that. That's like, I stole that from the actor who's from Seinfeld, where who plays Elaine's boss. He was on I Love the 90s, and they were talking about Silence of the Lambs. And he's like, there was a certain scene where he mispronounces Chianti. Completely took me out of it. And that sticks with me. I can't help but say it. I can't help but like think about that in a film and then say it.
It was the boy band 90s song when the Pokemon were fighting each other, and that's when she was like,
the 90s song took you out of the movie.
Yeah, and Christina Aguilera's.
Oh,
but that was at the end.
Yes,
that was at the very
still took
end.
you out of the movie.
That might take me out of the movie too.
But there's a lot. Anyway, so like took me out of the movie should be like a sub.
Yeah. What took Bailey out of the movie?
What took you out of the movie in this one, if you had to?
Probably Kyle MacLachlan's face took me out of the movie. Just because
he's so cute, though.
But it's such a baby Kyle MacLachlan. And maybe the Kyle MacLachlan butt scene, too, took me out of the movie a little bit.
Did he not have a butt? I didn't see that part. I don't remember.
There's this... Well, it's just
he had like a little tushy.
He has this nude scene, but it's like...
You do
strategically... You do?
Mm-hmm. I saw it.
Oh, damn.
I thought this is not a dong-free movie.
Yay! We were just talking about male nudity.
Male nudity.
Shout out to male nudity. What took me out of the movie? Maybe
the Robins.
The Robins, yeah. The animatronic Robins. Monologue.
And Sandy's stupid dream.
God. I think David tried to make it like lighthearted from all this grime and filth.
And the light in the world.
This love. Okay, ho, get out. Get out this fender bender.
I love the movie. I hate that scene. But
it is like it just comes out of nowhere, and it's too I don't know, dreamy. No pun intended.
What about you, Micah?
I think it was like it was a mix of things. The first rape scene when we first get introduced to Frank's crazy side, sexually at least. I was, my dissociation was very like responsive in that moment, and I'm like, whoa, literally cannot focus on what I'm doing right now. In terms of like what took me out of the movie while authentically watching it, it was any tidbit where he just gasses up. It just completely lost it. Like, and the dream, the Robin, stupid ass Robin scene that no one gives a shit about. Like, bitch, get out of this car.
That like almost like if I was probably like 10 degrees more cynical, that would ruin the movie for me. But
Really?
I really love the movie.
Dang.
If I was a different person.
Yeah. Do you think you're a cynical person?
Yes.
I'm like half.
I feel like since you liked Captain Fantastic, you're not super cynical. Because I am like,
I don't know what the fuck I am.
Neither do we.
Okay, so fuck, marry, kill, Frank, Dorothy, Sandy, go.
wait, there's no. Okay, marry Dorothy, kill Sandy. Guess that means I have to
fuck Frank.
Oh, man.
Maybe if he's like,
this out.
maybe.
But I would rather fuck Frank than marry Frank.
Yeah.
Why
not kill Frank?
Oh, right. There you go. Okay, there we go. Yes, switch those. Kill Frank. Fuck Sandy.
I would like to go the actual Jeffrey route, which is fuck Dorothy, marry Sandy, kill Frank.
Lovely.
I don't know. I think I could marry Dorothy though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that'd be tough.
Maybe I would kill Frank because he's horrible, and then I would marry Dorothy, and then I would fuck Sandy and open up her world. I'd be a nice memory for her.
Well, I would kill Dorothy, and then I would kill Sandy, and then I would kill Frank. 'Cause I don't like vaginas, Like
Yeah,
that really
true.
ruins. That takes me out of this whole movie, actually. Now,
all the vagina.
Kidding. No,
I
would.
hate women. I'm Micah.
I would kill Frank. I would fuck Dorothy, and I would marry Sandy because I could cheat on her throughout my whole life without a marriage, and she's too perfectionistic and ideal. I could abuse that.
She would just ugly cry and then forgive
Just
you.
kidding. I'm not actually a perpetrator individual. But if I'm getting into the movie character, I would marry her because it's consistent, She's not my
She's
type.
also she's pretty game. She's like, yeah, I'll honk the horn.
Ship,
I'll
oh my god.
I'll rush in to rescue
Let's
you.
take that. Okay, that also took me out of the movie.
The horn.
I'm gonna honk the horn
1,
4 times. 2, 3, 4. Like I was in some sort of
her acting there
Richard
was
Simmons
weird. It was odd.
workout.
She's
And
gonna
also,
cry
when he pees and he's like, Heineken.
I love that line. Because it's like, I talk to myself when I pee too. Asparagus.
It smells like coffee. Oh great, that was my mocha from earlier. But no, that
I
honks.
should probably see a doctor.
That's not gonna look suspicious at all if someone honks consistently 4 times. Dumbass.
I was wondering if there was any symbolism there, but I don't know.
Maybe if you took a scalpel or something and try to really look into that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really Sandy was interesting to me. Way more interesting, I think, than Jeffrey.
Oh,
I did Jeffrey.
Jeffrey is
He's like a semi fuckboy. I liked Jeffrey when he was conflicted.
semi fuck. Yeah. When he was conflicted about hitting Dorothy.
Yeah, and then when he's really kind of humbled by I think she wants to hurt herself. I think she wants to kill herself, and he realizes that he's fucking around with a real person, not this effervescent mystery woman who's probably behind this whole thing.
Yeah.
He realizes she's a real troubled person, and I think he was a good guy. Obviously he's helping her, holding her, but he's also
yeah.
when your side chick shows up.
We've all been there, right?
Also, like, her boobs were lopsided. Dorothy's. Did you notice that?
I mean,
It's because she had a kid.
Yeah, I know that happens, but like, it was such a ratio. It was such a difference, and like, you could tell even through her shirt in the beginning. That was
another
weird.
reason why I like men.
Yeah, but like, she had a great body. Like, I can see why Jeffrey like was like in the closet.
Like salami ham slices though. For areolas, I can't do that. It's gross. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I thought Kyle MacLachlan was so cute until he was naked. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
he's so skinny
and so young, like
so
nubile.
Yeah, I felt like I had to look away when he was naked because he looked like a teenager to me. And I was like, I'm a grown woman.
It made me uncomfortable because I was like, oh, these are.
I think that was
teenagers.
also intentional, right? Like
yeah,
that was...
he's so young and like not innocent, but just like, oh, you have not seen the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's supposed to make the audience like retract, like, oh, really setting the contrasting. David does that contrast thing really well.
Mm-hmm. He's a brilliant director. Oh. I definitely want to watch more of his stuff. I think though that I should like space it out because they're fucked up.
Yeah, they're really heavy.
For more David films, proceed to pornhub.com/David films. Thank you. Continue, Bailey. Sorry.
Yeah, like even his fucking liberties with Dune were like fucked up. Like, why that's not in the book? Why would you focus on this and not like the actual like shit in the book? I'm sorry, I love Dune. I love this book. And David, why? Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Closing arguments?
Did you like the movie at all? Micah.
Well, how many stars would you give it out of 5?
Okay, so I'm going to separate myself from the movie and objectively give it a 4 out of 5 or an 8.5 out of 10. Because it was brilliantly done. Everything's intentional. It was provocative. It was not provocative without reason, which is equally as annoying in many ways. Personally, it's like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
So that's me. What about y'all?
That's totally fine. Like that. That's why we have opinions. That's why we discuss movies. I really love it. Out of 5, I'd give it like a 4.5 out of 5. There's some tiny things where I'm like, why? But the fact that it makes me think so much and I constantly like, I'm just constantly thinking about it. And I just loved all of the creativeness in it. Also, Isaiah's not here, but I need to mention that he thinks I only like this movie because the ear scene, because I was telling him about it, and because my favorite scene from Reservoir Dogs was the ear scene.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Jeffrey and Isaiah resemble each other.
Aw. Because they're tall boys.
They're boys.
They're boys. But no, I just want to make it clear. I don't like that ear cutting scene in Reservoir Dogs because he's cutting his ear. I like it because it's weird. And it's theatrical, and I like things that are weird and kind of fucked up. That's why I love American Psycho. That's why I like Blue Velvet.
In every way.
Yeah, I don't like it because he fucking gets his ear cut off. Isaiah. Okay, that's all.
Exclamation point.
That's all I want to say.
Michaela. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I gave it a 4 out of 5 or a 4.5 out of 5 when we saw it the first time. On my Letterboxd, mostly because it's this is such a buzzword, but it has such an aesthetic. Like you could pause any frame in the movie and it could be like a painting because it's really.
I was gonna say that earlier. You and I think so much alike.
Y'all must be friends.
We should
make a movie together.
We should make
a mini docket together.
I'll watch it.
We should work together.
Yeah.
And like be in classes together.
Yeah, sounds great.
And constantly Facebook message each other and see movies together.
Oh, okay. Got it, guys.
He's got it. The light bulb went on.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Nothing changed from the second viewing, except I don't think I would watch this like leisurely again for quite some time. Like it is hard to watch. Yeah. It's not something you pop in on a Saturday night.
I think I could. Probably not.
Okay.
But I mean, I watched American Psycho right before I went to work yesterday because it's
casual.
Yeah. It's so funny. I had to leave the room during the scene when he's like with the two girls, his friend and the prostitute. I hate that scene when he kills her under the sheets. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I had to leave. Like, I do get upset over things, guys. But yeah, I think I could just watch this again. Probably not his other movies though. But I haven't seen any of them yet.
We should watch Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
If that concludes everything, thank you, Michaela, for
thank you,
featuring.
Michaela, for
This was so fun.
being here.
Oh,
Yay!
for sure. Thank you, Sean, for sneezing and coughing in the background.
Thanks,
You're
Sean.
welcome.
And
Shout out to Sean.
thank you, listeners. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Code 6, and stay tuned for one more in the next.
Shout out to Isaiah, wherever he may be.
Peace, Isaiah.
Stop.
R.I.P., bro.
Yeah.
Isaiah,
Kill yourself.